and we're gonna just do a random draw. So keep your raffle number. There's some bralettes. The coolest thing is Toxic sent me a $250 gift certificate.
Woo!
That'll be the last one. So yeah, we'll give away all the stuff we got. The other thing I love is that never once has she said anything to me about being vegan, right? She's not pushy. She loves her lifestyle. It's for her. If you want to know more about it, it's great. And I think it's great that there's opportunity for someone with like a different approach to nutrition to turning pro, right? And then, you know, we got big plans for next year, right?
Oh yeah.
So this is exciting for me. I've never seen this, so I'm gonna enjoy watching this. So what I'd like to do is the presentations. Take notes while it's going on if you have a question for her, because I want to get through all the presentations and make sure we have plenty of time for Q&A for you guys. I want to be able to talk a lot. So with that said, here is Natalie Matthews, Bikini Pro, Surf Pro,
Yay!
Pro Physique Athlete.
Wow, that's an intense introduction. Oh my god. All right, so I'm gonna talk to you guys about how I approach flexible dieting as a vegan. So I want to ask the question before I start: how many of you have thought about incorporating more plants into your diet? All right. How many of you have thought I could never go vegan? All right. I used to think the same way, so I should raise my hand. All right. Any of you are vegan? Oh, yay. Awesome. All right. So, who am I? Most of you know my story because I was chatting with you before. I was born and raised in the beautiful island of Puerto Rico. I grew up surfing, so I have, you know, always been an athlete my entire life. I do have a huge passion for surfing, and I kind of miss it because I moved from Puerto Rico, my homeland, to the States because I'm married to my husband, who is a helicopter pilot for the Coast Guard. So we move a lot, and yeah, that's how I ended up in the States. I've only been here 5 years, so this is my second language. Like I said, I'm a wife. I've been vegan for 6 years and vegetarian for 9 before that. So it took me a while to get to full vegan, but everybody's in their own journey. So it's just really a lifestyle choice for me. I started veganism for health reasons, and I stuck with it for ethical reasons. Through this presentation, like I said, I'm not going to be preachy about it or anything like that. I just want to educate you guys on how I do things. I'm not a scientist and I'm not a doctor, so again, it's just my personal experience as a vegan for over 6 years. I'm a vegan chef and cookbook author. I'm working right now on my second cookbook. It's going to be all high protein vegan recipes, and I'm super excited to share it. I know I've been like amping it up for a while, but it's coming.
Yay!
So I'm going to ask the most famous question, which is, where do you get your protein? And I know a lot of people think automatically, well, proteins on a vegan diet might be like high in carb or high in fat, and yes, there are some like that, but there's also a lot of low carb options. I mean, me and Paul got really low in carbs this year in prep, so there's possible ways of doing it, and without utilizing protein powders as your main source, which is what a lot of people think. And no, I do not eat salads all day long. I do really incorporate the flexible lifestyle into my life, and I incorporate treats here and there to keep me, you know, on track for the long term. So my favorite top two are tofu and tempeh. They're both really low in carb. They're a little bit on the higher fat depending on what type of tofu. There's different tofu ranges, and you can cook it in so many different ways. It's literally a blank canvas. Like, however you season your chicken, your meats, you can season your tofu and tempeh. They are really amazing, very versatile. I use silken tofu to do like protein mousse. I use extra firm tofu because that's my personal preference. I really like it when it's like firmer, and the firmer you get it, the easier it is to cook, and it also is higher in protein. So usually I just go for sprouted or extra firm, and those are higher in protein. And then there's seitan, which is what, when you go to the grocery store, is what you find most fake meats made out of. It's made of seitan. Seitan is made from vital wheat gluten, which is the protein found in the wheat berry. I love using vital wheat gluten in my recipes. I use it to make protein pancakes, to make waffles, to make pretty much any baked good, even bread. I make high protein bread, really low carb, and I enjoy it through prep. I even make bagels and things like that. So I have a lot of fun with it. I do not limit myself to just veggies. Then I utilize a lot of bean pasta, like the Bonza bean pasta, which is made from chickpeas. I love that one. I know there's an edamame one. I just don't really like the texture. It's a little bit on the gummy side, but a lot of people like that one. Dark greens. So when I'm looking at my plate, I don't look at it as just, you know, how I would a standard plate. Like, here's your meat, here's your carbs and fat. I look at it as a whole because everything in the plant kingdom really has protein. So if you eat enough, you're adding it throughout the day. So it's just gonna bump up. So greens are a great way to increase that. Dark leafy greens tend to be higher in protein, and they're also very rich in micronutrients, which is amazing. Spirulina is a big one. You can incorporate it in your smoothies or make spirulina cookies and things like that. And it's also a superfood. TVP is texture vegetable protein, and this is one of my favorite for people that are transitioning because it mimics the texture of ground beef. And again, you can season it however you want. It's very, very low in carb. I think it has 0 fat, if I'm not mistaken, maybe,
so.
yeah. And it's very high in protein. So I love using that. And it comes in different shapes, like some brands use kind of like crumble beef. Other ones actually have like a steak form, and it's all made from plants. Usually it's made from soy protein or pea protein. So there's soy-free options, there's gluten-free options. You just kind of have to educate yourself on the different options that they are. Sprouts is a big one for me in prep. I just like to incorporate them because they're so high in nutrients and in volume. I'm a big volume eater. Mushroom is another great one. Hemp seeds and chia seeds are super nutritious, and I just throw that on everything, like as a salad topper, in my smoothies, in my oatmeal. Nutritional yeast is a great add-on. So nutritional yeast is high in vitamin B12. It's high in pretty much all vitamin Bs, and it has a cheesy, nutty-like flavor. So it's really, really yummy. I love making like cheeses with it. Peanut butter powder, I utilize it a lot in prep. I put it on my peanut butter oats in the morning, and it just increased the protein without me adding like protein powder. And it's just defatted peanuts, so you keep the fats low so you can utilize them for something else. Vegan protein powders, there's a lot out there, and yes, there's some really crappy ones, but you know, they're just like everything else. There's crappy items and there's really good items. So my top favorite brands I would have to say is the 1UP. They nail the texture and the flavor. Another good one is the Vivo Life. It's really, really smooth, and I just tried this one this week and I just really loved it. Orgain and Plant Fusion are some of like the most cheapest ones that you can literally find them anywhere at Costco, even at Marshall's. And I love using these for baked goods. So during prep, I don't really like to utilize protein powders because I am a person that, again, likes to eat my food, especially when my calories start getting low. So that's kind of what I do during prep. I just put them on my waffles or my protein pancakes in the morning. And then nuts and seeds and things like that, and nut butters are just the obvious ones, so that's why I kind of put them to the end. So this is what, like a normal day, as I'm starting to ease into prep, obviously my calories are still a little bit higher. I start my morning with some type of oatmeal. So whether it is, I can literally make anything out of oatmeal. Like I said, I make protein pancakes, waffles with just oats. So even using like staple ingredients, you could get very creative. For this one, I just did a peanut butter and jelly overnight oat recipe, and that's just soy milk, the PB2 powder, and I'll probably have that with like some little vegan sausages on the side just to increase my protein for the morning. And then I'm a big fan of macro bowls because again, I'm focusing on variety and I'm focusing on different colors, and I like to say eat the rainbow because it represents different vitamins and minerals. So all of those items in there, with the exception of the sauerkraut and the tomatoes, they all contain protein. So it's all in a whole. I hope that makes sense. So when I look at my protein options again. I'm not just looking, oh, I'm just picking tofu. No, I'm looking at my total plate. And then this is one of my favorite dinners, is again the bonza bean pasta, the chickpea pasta with some wilted spinach. And then I threw some tahini sauce mixed with nutritional yeast as my sauce. And it's really, really good. This is when I'm like deep into prep. So I make like edamame, which is soybeans. I'm sure some of you would have it in like Asian restaurants and things like that. They usually come in a pod, but I buy them frozen already out of the pod. And I make like a seitan edamame burger. And that is probably, I think it was like 30 grams of protein and less than 10 grams of carbs if I'm not mistaken. And then I just use like the regular fixings that I would use in a burger and have it with a salad because I wanted to save my carbs for my Asian inspired macro bowl. So this is just grilled tofu, rice, and veggies. And those are my protein waffles that are just made from oats, flax seeds, and protein powder. That's it. And of course, I always have berries in the morning. That's a huge staple for me. This is another example of like a prep meal that I would have while I'm deep in prep. And as my carbs start getting lower, I'll probably like decrease the amount of peppers that I have. And that's about it. As you can see, you see a theme. I'm always including sauerkraut with my meals, especially raw sauerkraut, like the one that you find in the refrigerated area. It's really good for digestion. So it's like a really nice, natural, raw probiotic. This is like a meal that I started incorporating as my calories started going up after my prep. So as you can see, like that would be my standard prep meal, but then as my calories start increasing, I'll add some type of like heavier carbs like potatoes or rice. So you can be very, very versatile with it. And this one was a go-to prep meal for me. I love, again, volume, so using cauliflower rice was a big one for me. And this is just the Trader Joe's cauliflower rice mix. So I literally did nothing to it and just added air-fried tofu. This is when I got really lazy during prep. Like, you know, when the calories get really low and you just have no energy. So I just chop up high-protein tofu, throw it in the air fryer, and that's it. That's another, I think that was peak weight when we hit the 120 grams of carbs. So I just used like a lot of jicama and green beans and then my standard breakfast. And I just wanted to show you guys, these are some options for people that are transitioning or just miss the taste of meat. So I actually went vegetarian because I didn't enjoy the taste of meat at all when I was younger. So for me, none of these products, I don't really, I don't find a need for them, but I know it helps a lot of people that are interested in incorporating more plants. And yes, they are a bit more processed, but it's okay because if you think about it, they're made from plants. And when you turn around the package, the ingredients are amazing. I do use the deli slices a lot for peak week because they're a little bit higher in sodium, and they're really, really good. And the Vega protein yogurt is my favorite. And this, since I was a cheeseaholic, this is a must-have for me.
It's so good.
Those are good.
That's my favorite.
So
brand of
good.
cheese.
It's the best.
And then a lot of basically myths about the vegan diet is that you're going to be deficient in protein, you're going to be deficient in iron, calcium, omegas. So these are some of the things that you can eat in your diet so you're not deficient in those things. So in iron, I can find it in spirulina, beans, cacao. Who doesn't like eating chocolate? Tofu, molasses, cashews. For calcium, kale, tofu, sesame seeds, which are super nutritious, spinach, edamame. And for omegas, berries, chia seeds are huge, so I'm always adding chia seeds to something. For omega-6, hemp seeds actually have the perfect balance between omega-6 and omega-3. So I like those, and they're very high in protein. So again, I use them as a salad topper or in my smoothies. Pumpkin seeds, I use those a lot. And for magnesium kelp, which is seaweed, I chop up seaweed and throw it in my food sometimes. Beans, bananas, oats, again, cacao. So I eat a lot of chocolate. And potatoes. And then Paul wanted me to talk about pros and cons. So honestly, the pros that I experienced, personal experience, was my digestion improved because my body wasn't spending so much time in processing all the food. It just kind of goes through you. This vegan food is very high in fiber, so everything moves a little bit quicker. My energy improved. I was a surfer at the time, so I noticed this immediately. That was a big thing. Recovery. I used to take naps. I was a napper. Like, I would take naps a lot. And after a year of transitioning into my vegan lifestyle, I was no longer taking naps, and I have a lot of energy. Like, it was my big thing. And my skin, I always talk about that because of my high dairy consumption before, which was very extreme, and I know it's not the same for everybody. Dairy causes a lot of inflammation in the body and a lot of mucus in the body. I experienced very bad back acne growing up, and that immediately went away. So those were some of the things that I experienced in my pros. My cons, honestly, the biggest one was the social aspect. Just explaining to people back then, there weren't people like me talking. There weren't all these products that I show you. There wasn't anything that I could go of. And I was in Puerto Rico, which is like, you know, you literally find pork everywhere, like on the stick and things like that. And just explaining it to my family, they thought that I was gonna die, basically. So just educating myself so I can answer the hard questions, that was the hardest part for me. And the fact that, again, there was nothing back then for me, so I didn't know. But one of the things that I started doing was that I started, for people that want to incorporate more plants into their diets or are interested in doing this, the thing that I started doing is I didn't want to focus on the things that I couldn't have. I focused more because literally now you can make anything vegan. So I started veganizing my favorite meals. I started veganizing pizza, nachos, casserole dishes, and things like that. So I started doing that, and I had such an enjoyable time doing it that that's kind of how the chef in me came out, and that's how Fit Vegan Chef started. I went to school for it, and I really found a passion in teaching people how to do it and how easy it is. It's not as hard as people think. And just like counting macros might be very daunting at the beginning, it's all a learning experience, and you get really good at it with time. So same thing happens with this. If this is something that you're interested in, it's the same process. It's just a learning experience. And if anything, I don't feel like I'm, you know, giving up on anything. I feel like I gained so much, and I'm trying more things than I ever, like, you wouldn't get me to eat a vegetable before. And I was vegetarian, but I was a crappy one. I literally lived off of like mac and cheese. So that's kind of what I did. So thank you guys for like hearing this with an open heart and listening to my story. Hope you guys enjoyed it and took something away from it.
Yay.